Saskatoon's new fire chief is Chief Morgan Hackl, and I've invited the chief to come in today and give us a little bit of insight into Saskatoon Fire Department, some of the background about himself personally, and a little bit about the future that is going to happen here in the city in a number of fronts. So, Chief, thank you for making time today.
Thanks for having me here today, Randy. It's great to be here.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. We've known you, some of us, for a little while, but maybe for the greater community, who is Morgan Hackl and how did he come to be the fire chief?
Well, I grew up in Saskatoon. I've lived here my entire life, other than 1 year of my university time. So I grew up on the east side, lived here, went to Holy Cross High School, then spent 4 years at the U of S, and then spent a fifth year at the University of Calgary. And at that time became a member of the Saskatoon Fire Department. That was in September of 1987. And worked 26 years on the operations side in fire stations and became a captain in a fire station and then a battalion chief in charge of 70 staff, which at that time I became part of the management team. And then in 2013 became assistant chief of communications and public relations, and that was a role, I've always enjoyed my career, but that was a role that allowed me to really pursue things that I enjoyed, being in the public and the community and interacting not just within the fire department, but outside of that. And then in August 1st of this year, 2015, I was appointed the chief of the department.
So it's a nice warm story, I think, in that sense of a local community-minded individual who's risen through the ranks and now where you're at today. The fire department has had a number of changes over the years, and to its credit, we've also seen some new initiatives over the past number of years. What are some of those that you like to look back on that were some high points for you?
Well, it's interesting. Like any business, we have to evolve and meet the needs of our customers. So the City of Saskatoon, us being one of the divisions within that, we have to serve the citizens of Saskatoon. And so we've seen a lot of changes. In 1987, we were a fire-based business, a little bit involved in the medical side as well, in going to heart attack calls, for example. And then in 1990, we became involved in the medical side. We respond to medical calls. And then during those years as well, we took on hazardous materials response and river rescue, trench rescue, a number of specialties that have become entrenched in our department now and are really making us well-rounded and complete in terms of serving on the side of safety and being reactive. But the other part of that is in being proactive, we've had to make sure that we try to keep our prevention division evolving and our education. And so our fire prevention division, we have 12 inspectors. And so we want to prevent fires. We would prefer not to go to fires, and we want to help prevent them and keep our buildings and our citizens of Saskatoon safe. So that's a really important division to our department, but right across North America, fire departments have seen the value in fire prevention very much being top priority for a department. And then of course the other thing is education. That has always been very dear to me. I come from an educational background. My years at university and actually my entire family come from the education profession. And so in being involved in community relations and education is of course another proactive approach to keeping people safe in their homes and in businesses where they work.
I think that's a very important point. I know a lot of us growing up in the city, we've had that educational component in the schools and in service clubs. Do you see that as another way of growing how you can take your message out to the kids and some of the teenagers out there?
For sure. We've always focused our Learn Not to Burn program in the schools, in the younger aged children, say kindergarten to grade 4 or 5, and that's a really good time to educate those people. We've realized that by expanding it and talking to other groups, it's helped immensely as well. For example, in the past number of years, we've seen a lot of immigration into the city of Saskatoon. And there's really good opportunities there to help educate new Canadians on how our homes are built and how things operate, stoves and smoke detectors, how important they are, depending where they come from. We all live different throughout the world, and it's really important that we educate. Another area is we've started to do more work with university students. We did a dorm burn at the university this fall during their welcome week, which was really well received by the students and the administration of the university. So that's an example of a partnership. And as of late also, we're reconnecting with the older adults of our community. Saskatoon Council on Aging, we've had numerous meetings with them, and we're trying to make sure that what we provide to them in terms of education and public engagement is meeting their needs. So that's another area where we see in young children, but also in reaching out to the older adults of our community is a really important part of fire safety.
A lot of the work that you're doing is not just fire related. There's the EMTs and accidents or being involved with health. Is that something that you're looking to expand or just kind of maintain and do that very well?
Well, actually, it's interesting. We're evaluating a number of areas of our department right now, and that is one of them. What is our role in the medical community? We believe there is a place for us within the community. Currently, our staff, when you talk about EMTs, when I started in 87, but in 1990 I was certified as an EMT, an emergency medical technician. And so that at that time, we became involved in the medical system, and I think we all saw benefits throughout the city. Now the staff who come to us are trained as primary care paramedics. So they have more advanced skills than I had in 1990, and they can provide more in terms of patient care. And so currently we're addressing that. There's a number of type of calls that we do go to as a fire department along with the ambulance service, but we're just wanting to see if that's the right fit. We believe there is value in us going. We have 9 stations within the city, and I believe they're located strategically. And we just want to, the fire service has always believed in community and serving the community, and that's just an area that I think we add value to the community.
When we look at the placement, and the city's just grown dramatically the past 7 to 10 years, as the new neighborhoods emerge and populations shift throughout areas of the city, it's got to take a lot of a balancing act to try and figure out, is this one underserved or is that overserved, and how you respond to those times. What do you do to try and put measures and a balance to how you serve, like you say, the citizens?
So a standard, a benchmark that our department adopted in 2003 is called the National Fire Protection Association. 1710 is the exact standard that was adopted by our city council at that time in 2003. So what that standard talks about is response times from fire stations to emergency incidents. And what that standard allows us to do, it's a real good guide that allows us to make sure that our stations are situated correctly. So what we've done with our mapping division at City Hall is we've mapped out the city and each fire station, and then through posted speeds, they can, what's called a heat map, they can determine how long it takes to get to different addresses. And within this standard of 1710, we try to get to an emergency in 4 minutes from when the truck leaves the fire station. We try to meet that standard. Within that standard, you're supposed to try to accomplish that 90% of the time. It's a guideline. So currently we're meeting it about 83% of the time. I think we're striving towards 90, and we're doing, I think, quite a good job of trying to achieve that. But what happens is as the city grows in all different directions, we continually have to reevaluate. So right now, that's what we went through. In 2014, we did a continuous improvement. One of our initiatives was to look at the city as a whole and see if we could look at possibly relocating a fire station. And so it was interesting when we did these heat maps, there were some areas where there was overlap between stations, and then there was others where there was some need for better service. So currently we're looking at moving a few stations, and it's not something new. If you look back in the history of the fire department, we've moved a few stations through its history, and I'll just give you an example. Number 2 station, which currently is on Diefenbaker Drive in the West End. In 1912, the first number 2 station was built on Avenue B and 21st Street, which is currently the back of our lot at number 1 station. And it existed there for quite a period of time into the 50s. And then we relocated out to Avenue W and 21st Street. And then we relocated again out to Diefenbaker Drive in 1981. So that's an example of us looking over time. Our past administrations looked at how we can better serve the city.
Sure, yeah.
It wasn't through the technology of today,
Yeah.
but that's an example of where we've moved. So currently we have the old number 3 station. I'll just give you the other example. The first number 3 station was built, it's now called the Hose and Hydrant. It's a bar just on 11th Street, just off of Broadway. And then in 1958, we relocated to the current station, which is across the street from Lathy Pool on Taylor Street. And now we're looking to see if we could possibly move that station somewhere, because that's our oldest serving station. It's been open 57 years. And so at some point, we have to decide how much money are we putting into an existing station, and are we serving the citizens the best way we can in terms of response
Meeting those
times.
targets, sure.
Yes.
Just to finish with your future vision, communications, your background, where do you want to see the department in a few years?
Well, I'm really excited about this chance to, with our fire stations, reevaluate the whole city and make sure we're serving the city well. But my other goal that's really important to me is I grew up in Saskatoon. I've been a part of this community all the way through, and I really believe in community, and that our fire department needs to engage the community more than it ever has. And we have a great community relations division that works really hard to try to reach the community as much as we can. But my goal is to make sure that our future fire stations are more community-based, that they have community rooms that are available to the public and the associations in the area to use, and that long-term that we can look at giving something back to those people in the community right there at the fire station.
I think you're the right guy for the job. I appreciate you taking time today, and wish you all the best. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah.